We'll point out the dude has yellow eyes. And every time I've ever heard kids describe how an evil guy looks like, it's always yellow eyes. I swear to God, he had yellow eyes. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Stone Face Reactions. I'm Theta, this is Lessons, and we are back with another episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Gaiden, Season 2, Episode 10, which is the 10th oddity here that I realize might not become apparent to anybody who's watching these on the YouTube timeline, is that when I make the thumbnails, I'm just putting in the very bottom right-hand corner the episode number, or not the episode number, the number in the playlist that the episodes we're watching. So right now, since we're watching episode 1 through 14 of Gaiden, they're just going to say 1 through 14. So it doesn't seem apparent what's going on, because upper left-hand corner it'll say Season 2, Episode 10. Bottom right-hand corner it'll say number 10. And it's like, why is he writing the number down twice? When we get past 14, the bottom right-hand corner will say 15, and then the top left will say whatever episode number it is. So these two numbers will become different. But you'll just, if you ever want to keep up and think, where the hell am I in this watch order? Bottom right-hand corner of the thumbnail will tell you everything. Other than that, Lessons, do you have any thoughts you want to share with us about last episode or the story so far?
Last episode was, again, we talked about before how most of the pacing here is pretty glacial, but you do get some action episodes like the big battle of Tiamat 2, which for an action piece, it was still kind of slow pace. I mean, you have the ships firing each other and explosions, but since it was back and forth and all that, it's like, okay, you don't really see a lot of movement really until the very end of the episode, right? And the big kind of the last image where you see that shot going into Ashby's ship on the flank of Ashby's ship.
It kind of reads as though somebody translated like an old thriller, or not a thriller, old like a mystery thriller novel that was never written to be like an action piece, and then one-for-one it. Because, you know, like the way somebody in like an old gumshoe might be old gumshoe novel might be describing how the gunfight played out, but it's not played out from a action scene perspective. It's played out from like what's going on in their mind perspective.
Yeah. But now we get to last episode. We got to another relatively action episode, although most of the time was Wenli and his adjutant sitting in a corner talking about the situation, and then Kristoff, which is supposed to be the leader of the prisoners, ostensibly, joins them, right? And so they basically, well, they're supposed to be action because, and it does end at an action beat, like there's an explosion, and it's like, oh, what's going to happen next, right? But most of the time it's still talking. Right?
Well, it starts with action, actually.
Yeah, well, kind of.
Literally, because I was like, what good is being big and strong going to do you in the middle of a gunfight? And the dude comes in and disarms a dude with a gun, like hauls him over his back. It was the start of the little rebellion thing that's going on. So you had all these guys with guns running around. And I keep calling him Piotr, and I might be getting that wrong. I'll check the board later when we go to the board. But Piotr and Yang.
Well, one of the things that was interesting about that was the reason why he was able to do that was that one of these, there were two men, and one of them identified himself as a noble and said, oh, you're just a peon, you're just a commoner. And the commoner is like saying, well, we shouldn't do this, it's going to get us into trouble, etc. And he gets so angry that he starts kicking the crap out of him, right? Literally, because he, knocks him out with a gun and then takes him down and starts kicking him. And that's when Piotr comes like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. And just janks a gun and he goes like, boom. Like, oh, I'm going to fight you. And he hits him. It's like, well, that hurt, actually. He didn't say he tickled, which is usually the line you would expect. It's like, oh, man, that actually hurt. And then, bam.
I'll be honest, I got hung up on your use of literally, not because I'm being like pedantic like that guy. I was so used to you using literally to mean literally, so that when we had a conversation of he kicked the shit out of that guy, and you're like, literally, I'm like, I don't remember him shitting all over the place.
Okay, not that literally, but still, they kicked him up. And so that is interesting, a counterpart, which gets mentioned also later on. It's like, well, people just like, well, yeah, we're commoners, but in our society, people can rise to the occasion, stuff like that, or like, the empire, that if you try to go against the thing, you're gonna be, sent to at the camp somewhere, right? And Yang is thinking, is like, is that really the truth? I mean, we do have our elites and all that. And then the other part, of course, was a discussion of what's really happening. And according to Krista, which is very interesting, he has all this inside knowledge. What's really happening is that the captain, the commander of the prison, has been embezzling money to the tune over 300,000. I don't recall the currency they use, but significant amount of money.
The word dinar comes to my head.
Dinar, yeah, dinar. 300,000 dinar, which is supposed to be significant kind of money, but we have to remember that
Yang's entire art collection wasn't worth 1 dinar.
Yeah, but also the fact that this is Japanese, this anime, and sometimes, most of the time, when they talk about money, they use it as an equivalent to the yen, not the dollar. So 300,000 could be like, if they're here, I think it's clearly meant to be more like the dollar or a pound or euro, right?
Well, I
A
don't know, the
significant amount
dinar
of
is
money.
actually its own thing, so.
But when you use a fantasy or sci-fi currency, and you want to see in universe. I mean, I know the dinar is actually, Iraq has dinars.
Yeah, say it's the principal currency of the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
Also, the reason it keeps coming in my head is, didn't it, the dinar is the main currency in Iron Claw, that game that we played before. Yeah, it's like, and that's based on historical shit. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm thinking it has its own currency because they're internally consistent with a lot of stuff. So I would have to think that they're not like skimping out on any detail anywhere. To your glacial pace thing before, they're really taking their time, and I don't think we're going to like they hand waved this one thing for no reason.
Yeah, but I would say that, for example, but the dinar, I said dinar, but it's a dinar, is usually devalued against, say, the dollar, whether it's the U.S. dollar, the Canadian dollar, or the
oh, right, but Galactic organization, whatever. I mean, it's also multinational or more multi whatever. You know what I'm looking for here, but I'm failing to get.
Yeah. So I would think that it's closer to, say, a Western currency like the euro, stuff like that. So it's in order for it to be significant amount of money, because if it's pegged, that's what happens when you have, even if you give it a real life name, right, like dinar. Or dinar, it's still in a sci-fi fictional currency. So, for someone, say, watching this in Japan, and go like 300,000, that's like what, $3,000? Like it's not a lot of yen, right?
I don't think it actually matters at the moment, only in so much as that we haven't gotten the value of anything. Like, if no one's had to pay for goods and services to like let us know, like, oh, that's going to cost you 10 dinar. For us to then value, okay, I don't know exactly how much a dinar is worth, but it's worth 3,000 times as many as that. That sort of thing.
Well, I think it's still important in that it's supposed to be a significant amount of money, right?
Well,
he's embezzling.
I hope down the road we don't find out how much it is worth, and it's like 3,000 dinar gets you like a car, and this dude was like, 300,000 dinar gets you a car, and this dude was just like throwing it all away for nothing. They could retroactively fuck this guy over by making him an idiot, more so than he is currently.
And that's the reason why he set up the situation where he strongly implied that Yang should exchange himself as a prisoner, because one of the demands of the rebels, right, the people who were in the riot, was that the commander of the facility become their prisoner in exchange for the hostages that they have, right? Because they capture some soldiers. Like, okay, we'll let them go, but you're more valuable than that. And it's like, and there's this tit for tat where there's like, Yang realizes what's going on and kind of has to force the commander to order him, because, well, it's an unusual order that kind of shows on the record that he's being a coward, right? That it's not illegal for him to order him that, but it looks bad on the record. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna send one of my underlings to be,
There,
taken prisoner.
there was a statement made, and I'm going to say this now. I only took notes up to episode 8 so far, and we're currently talking about episode 9. So I don't have anything specific to say about that at the moment, but there was something said during episode 8 that I didn't actually make a note about that is kind of referential to this thing you're talking about, is that during a conversation with Piotr and Yang, Piotr mentions the fact that the vice superintendent is a bureaucratic man who insisted on doing nighttime patrols himself, and also insisted that since it's policy, the superintendent should also have to do it as well. And the superintendent fucking hates this and is accusing the vice superintendent of basically badgering him with the rules.
Yeah.
So just the idea now that the vice superintendent is constantly doing nighttime patrols and the superintendent is supposed to be.
Yeah. Again, somebody who's shirking his responsibility.
Well, more so to your commentary that he might be a coward who's trying to get that cowardice off the record. And the vice superintendent might be just somebody who's also fucking with that. Because remember, who did they capture? The vice superintendent.
They captured some so.
Yeah, no, they captured the vice superintendent as well. So if the same thing is this guy is trying to knock off Yang in this maneuver, he's also had the vice superintendent put there too, somebody who's also been pissing him off.
And Christoph also alludes to the fact that his mystery of what happened to an Imperial officer that had changed sides is somehow connected to the possibility that Ashby was murdered. And he confesses that it was him who was impersonating Ashby's dead wife and sending the letters. So
also the possibility there's two people he's interested in. I don't know if the other one's an Imperial though. I almost thought it was a red herring, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I told you before we started recording. I'll say this now for the recording because I don't know why I said then and not now. It feels like that the pace of the episodes has been that we go from something dealing with a mystery to something dealing with the gang in the moment. Maybe not so much in the earlier episodes, but the later ones, such as this one, where I feel like a lot of the mystery impetus is like in 8, and then the action is in 9, or how we go from talking to who's the guy who just died?
Rosas.
How we went from talking to Rosas to then getting a action shot of the fleet battle itself. Kind of just a back and forth thing. Even though the action shot actually gives us one of the bigger hints about how Ashby died. Assuming that's from the god perspective and not from a foiable narrator perspective.
Unreliable narrator, yeah. Yeah, I think so. And to cap it off it also shows that we do get more glimpses of the Empire, but we also get more glimpses of how the Federation actually works, more politics, and that not everything is certainly not perfect with the Federation, right? They might be the counterpart to the Empire, but you do have corruption. You have people willing to, you've seen also people who are cowards, can run away from combat, etc. So it creates, I think, a very interesting picture of Yang's side of things, right?
You pointed out that we've gotten a picture of the Empire. It actually now occurs to me. So I'm just thinking now, maybe I should have held this off until my Theta's thoughts section, because it does tie into one of my thoughts. But they've specifically pointed out to us in the past where information was coming from. Specifically, Fezzen, when it came to facts about the Empire. And then we saw the Empire, like their internal stuff during the battle. And I'm thinking now, where does that come from? Because I think it ties into one of my notes here. Are you done with your lessons thoughts?
Now that you mentioned that, I think because one of the questions I've been, wrestling, we talked about this before, is exactly what is the situation? Is the Empire maintaining this war because they need an outside enemy? In other words, could the Empire just win the war if they wanted to? Would they have the resources to just steamroll the enemy?
At the end
Or
of
is it
episode 8, they literally say that the second battle of Tiamat struck a really bad blow to the Empire and that they weren't able to push further during that time, which I guess is insight into the relative strengths of the two different factions that we see.
Yeah, but it could be, for example, that the Empire hasn't fully mobilized, right? Like,
After
in other
100
words,
something years.
it could be, right? Or is it that the Empire situation is in much dire straits, and this is more like a containment situation where they're like, we got to keep this war going because the moment we stop fighting this war, then people are going to see the weakness of the Empire, and we're going to have more rebellions and more people either joining this federation or creating their own bits and pieces, right?
I think we
Uh,
talked about that before, the Starship Troopers scenario.
Yeah. Or it could literally be a matter of this is what they have, and they're fighting the war more out of stubbornness, right? We cannot accept the loss, right? Because that you know, rather than this is a real threat for us and we need to deal with it either way, right? Uh, and also tells you exactly what the position of the Federation is. Is really they it's portrayed as a existential crisis, right? Now they have to fight this war because if they don't, the Empire is going to steamroll and destroy them and just reincorporate them, right? And horrible things are going to happen to the citizens, etc.
Yeah,
But at the same time,
that was a point during, was it
the first
6?
episode,
No, 6 or 5, where they
yeah,
indicate that loss to the Alliance. Sorry, it's Alliance in this show. You said Federation 100 times, and it just
yeah, I keep saying
occurred to me. Yeah,
alliance, yeah,
yeah. The point of view of the Alliance soldier is that victory doesn't actually gain them all that much, but a loss is a loss of everything, right?
Mhm.
Versus the Imperial point of view, where they don't even consider defeat because it doesn't really mean anything to them. But a victory is glory, it's a reward. They just consider what will come if they actually win. So it's very much, the Empire doesn't seem to give a shit, is what it sounds like, versus the Alliance, which is just like, we don't need to win, but we can't lose.
Yeah. But which also leads to, has there been any attempts by either side at some point to go, we've been fighting this war for over a century. Can we just agree to disagree? We're not gonna, the alliance, right? Is not going to try to tempt other systems to leave or anything like that. And the Empire decides that they're no longer going to at least directly try to influence the alliance, right? Also, what is perhaps there has to be economic ties as well, right? There might be some trading
I mean, it
across
doesn't
the lines and
have to be.
whatnot. Any kind of well, I mean, how strong is the internal economy of especially the alliance, which is supposed to be smaller?
I have it
Because we
on
only
good
see a few
authority
planets.
that the 300,000 dinar will probably buy you a car.
Yeah, so
Although I may have made that up.
so we'll
Although an
see what
entire art
happens.
collection, not worth 1 dinar.
Well, that's because they were all fakes, which is
Still
it
doesn't
will
make
still be
any
valid.
sense because a lot of
Yeah,
reproductions you can sell for, pennies on the dollar is still a lot of dollars if you have a lot of,
yeah.
fake art.
So there it is. Those are my thoughts.
All right. I think I'm going to go directly into my thoughts and then we'll do the board after that. Keep all the thoughts section together. I'm actually going to skip down into my thoughts because I want to go back over the thing about how we're seeing the Imperial side during the replay of the second Battle of Tiamat, when everything that we've been seeing has either been from the records of the Alliance or from reproductions from Pheasant or whatever.
Mhm.
Christoph wants to know about Admiral Siegmeister's defection and the truth. I have to wonder if it's going to be a similar story to that of Ashby's, have parallels, or at least connect. Siegmeister certainly sounds like an Imperial name. Christoph says that Siegmeister defected over 60 years ago, which would be before Ashby would have graduated pre-730 Mafia. He is someone the Empire knows about, but records for in the Alliance are rare, despite defecting to them. Given the theme of Muckenberger's generational revenge, could it be possible that Admiral Siegmeister had a son, family changed its name, and Bruce Ashby was that son? Maybe even that his father taught him Imperial tactics, which is why he was so good on the battlefield, against the Empire specifically. And if so, that might be what the Alliance is actually trying to hide. That their greatest hero is actually the son of a former Imperial.
The question is, why hide it? Because
the first thing that comes to me is that Hitler had a family, and when they migrated to the United States post-war, they changed their name, and the government hid that name. Not because they were important people, but because of the association with the name Hitler, right? So, that's the first thing that jumped into my mind as an example.
True.
What if his name was Bruce Siegmeister? Would it have still worked?
Well, I think that, I mean, that's a consideration. But, you know, Hitler was the leader of the enemy, you know, the Third Reich. So, you know, that's a powerful
Dude was
name.
admiral rank. Clearly he got up there somehow.
But on the other hand, you want to tout the fact that your way of life is so much better than the Empire that admiral level officers are willing to defect to your side, right?
Hold on a second. Did I write a thought here? No, sorry, that's about a different guy. Sorry, I thought I had a follow-up thought. Well, here, I'll just follow it up here. Just keep the two thoughts together. He also asked about the assassination of Admiral Michelson? I don't know. Probably Michelson. It happened after Christoph came to Iconia, so after the Second Battle of Tiamat. We also have no indication as to what side this admiral would have been on, other than that they were an acquaintance of Christoph's. You know, he's been in prison for 40-something years. It's entirely possible he met, Alliance officers. He wants to know just these two things before he dies, which seems to imply that they may also be connected. Sorry, I thought I had written it here. The thought I was having, and again, these are literal 2 a.m. thoughts once again, so I apologize that my half brain isn't so good at this. Isn't so good at this? I don't know what my voice was doing there. The thought that one of these people may have also, I guess Admiral Michelson here, may have been the one who killed Ashby. Michelson being after the imprisonment, which means he's after the battle, that he may have been, because the entire point, or not the entire point, the weight of the battle episode is that we see which direction the shot came from, which it would imply on the Imperial side. But what if Admiral Michelson is actually, I guess it follows on my what if he's an Imperial son sort of thing, because remember, this is over 100 years, 150 years of war, and we already have generational revenge built in with the Muckenbergers. What if, right? What if Siegmeister had generational revenge from the Alliance side, and somebody found out, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill that kid no matter what. And Michelson gets fucking assassinated not soon after. Tie up that loose end.
Oh, it's all possible, and probably this episode will give us a little more insight on that because we're running out of episodes, really.
Well, 4 left in the spiral.
Yeah, but the way these episodes shape up, it's a lot of things take their time. So, you know, unless they are trying to speed things up in the end.
I think that was the case cracker myself. What do these two people have to do with any of this? And it's like, I constantly remember my former theory was that Ashby was an Imperial like actor or a spy or something. It's like, well, this follows through on that sort of idea, but makes him not he's not to blame for it if he is just like the inheritance of a grudge and also not like acting upon it. He could still be acting in good faith on the behest of the alliance, despite the fact he may know his own lineage. Again, I guess it doesn't like super explain why he's good at fighting, but the fact that he's good in the like microseconds of a fight. If his dad was like an admiral and taught him imperial tactics, he might not know the grand imperial scheme of like what the battleground strategy is going to be, but he might know. You remember in the Hunt for Red October, where the dude's like, "Oh yeah, no, they always do this at this certain time," or if you do this, he's gonna juke right, or that sort of thing. There might be like the standard imperial response to a thing, which is why he's so good in the moment to respond to what's going on. He knows what they're taught because his dad fucking taught him.
I mean, also he could be the one who wants to double and prove himself to the alliance because of his background, right? Now, I am of this side. I am of this lineage. My father the way a father's a traitor in a way. I mean, he betrayed one side to go to the other. That's always treason. But he wants to prove himself, right? Like, I am my own man, and I am an alliance officer, and I'm going to do this. That might be the pressure at the end where he's like, yeah, I always been right?
Well, there's also the element of that one episode where we had the politician talking about the possibility of a military government if Bruce comes out of this fight and he gets promoted and retires and then goes to the political life, that we can't let this son of an imperial become the leader of our government. That is the whole assassination of JFK conspiracy right there. We can't let this man who's beholden to the church, the Pope, become the leader of our nation. You don't want to take the knee to the church. Of the many JFK conspiracies, it's just one of them that jumps into my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like that was the case cracker for me. So if that one starts playing out, I'm like, haha, noticed. And it doesn't involve all that shit that I was talking about last episode about what if everybody all died in some of the same way, or these people died in this way, these people died in that way, or everyone that walked out of the building in a shot, because like multiple people walked out of that building. The same one gang walks out of, I think it's supposed to be the headquarters and everything. Yeah. Everyone that was animated eating with their right hand, all were part of this, something that deep. All right, back up to the top. Oh, sorry, I don't know how to say the name of the place. Econiopolis has a population of just over 100,000 people, though the original plan was to have it expanded to over 1 million. The prisoner population, we covered the difference here, but let's go back over again, is 55,400 people. There are 3,600 soldiers, which means the planet has a civilian population of 41,000 people. Almost as many civilians as there are prisoners. You're looking confused, but that is math.
Yeah, but I'm wondering where the math is based, because I think the prison and the city they're not the same.
No, but the prisoners occupy the city as like, you know what? Hold on, I thought I had a.
No, I think they're 100,000.
No, they're considered part of the population. He says that out loud. Also, I'll jump down 2 notes here. During the reaction 2 episodes back, I mentioned thinking of a European prison system that allowed prisoners to walk in and out, still occupying their place in society. I didn't write down the specifics, but the country I was thinking of was Norway. If anyone out there wants to fact check me on their specific prison system, because they have a much lower recidivism rate than just about everybody else. Because it used to be that they based their prison system on ours, and they had like an 80% recidivism rate, and now it's jumped down to like 20%. Anyway, that's why you see a bunch of their prisoners just like doing menial jobs in the drive up, because they're just free to do whatever. The good ones, anyway, I guess. I don't know, because we still see a lot of people in the prison thing itself. Anyway, he said 100,000 people total, and that's the number. So a lot of people are just living here. You know, I guess soldiers with extended families, with a massive extended family for each one of them.
How many people that were brought in to build the prison
And
they might have
never
brought their
let go
family,
home.
you know, and support staff, that sort of thing. I mean, it's the castle builds the town kind of situation where you build a castle and then a town built around it because of all the services the castle needs, right? And of course, then the town becomes its own thing. The castle has collapsed over 100 years, 1,000 years, but you know, the town itself becomes its own thing because it has its own trade. Because maybe that one of the reasons why the castle probably was sited there is because of the, you know, crossroads of trade routes or access to water. I mean, they were doing also a lot of. They mentioned that they were doing terraforming, right? That it stopped, so they probably brought not only people to build the prison, but also to terraform the planet as well,
I mean,
right?
I know what you're saying.
Uh,
It's the consideration that Griffin used to give to the population of Side 7 being like 10 times what it was listed as. Because, you know, families of the engineers and everything like that, and support staff for the engineers and whatnot. It's not something we haven't discussed here on the channel before, so entirely understand.
and also, again, with a war that lasted hundreds of years, we do talk about. I think there was a mention of prisoner transfers, but I don't think that they're that common. Which means once you get captured, especially by the Alliance, you're there to stay unless the planet gets liberated
Oh, no,
by
actually, it's
the
not right.
Imperium. Huh?
Let's see. My second to last thought. Something I missed. Christoph von Hoffenhiller has had many chances to be released already and is choosing to stay at the prison. They do prisoner exchanges apparently on the regular.
Yeah.
Which was to your point that you were just saying. I literally have it written down, so I figured this is the opportune moment to hit that card. No, I mean,
Yeah.
literally they say it, so he's staying here for a reason. But they're saying he's had the opportunities to leave many times. And if he's had the opportunity to leave many times, I have to believe that at least many aristocrats have had the chance to leave. Because he's also, I don't have it written down here, but he's mentioned that he was the inheritor of like a barony. And then at like 25, he joined the military. And 3 years later, he was at the second battle of Tiamat. So I guess in 3 years, he achieved captain rank.
I mean, he might have. Well,
They might have
junior
artificially
lieutenant.
promoted him due to being an aristocrat.
Probably.
Could be that sort of thing. I only have one last note here. It's just another math one. Considering that we know it took Yang 9 days to reach Iconia from... I keep wanting to call it Hessian, but that's not the name of the planet. Heinesen, which just makes me think of a beer brand. It's the capital where they make beer, I guess.
Yeah.
And that we know Iconia is 480 light years from Heinesen. That means that Yang's transport was moving an average of 0.000617 light years per second. Just the math.
I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, I'm a big believer of moving at the speed of the plot. Right? It's not important unless there's a very specific thing, like we have to arrive in a certain amount of time.
There was
or
an
we're gonna lose this battle.
argument during the first D&T episode that came up when Raph reacted to it with me, and just something me and Griffin discussed before when me and him reacted was the considerable distances between fleet fights and how fast they cross the distances between one another therein. Because sometimes, you know, it seems like they're spending a lot of time just looking at each other before they actually get there to, like, fighting distance. So, the concept that they're moving pretty damn fast is all I'm really covering here. And even then, realistically, they're not even moving 1% of the speed of light, so it's feels pretty scientifically possible. I mean, we haven't covered any of the, like, actual science about, like, propulsion systems or anything. Boy, I can't wait for that span of the 100 main episodes when we're dealing with the engineers. Let me tell you everything about the propulsion systems. You're going to be an expert by the end of the series.
I think they have to have fast and light travel, because if you're measuring distances in light years, yeah, it would take decades. Anything other
Well,
than
again, I said less than 1% of speed of light per second. So
Yeah,
they're
that has to
traveling
be-
almost, they're, rounding up. They're well, not even rounding up, actually rounding down. You would round down because I said 0.000 before I said anything else. But even then, per second is still pretty damn fast. And they got there in 9 days, 480 light years in 9 days.
Yeah, that has to be way faster than the speed of light.
No.
Yes. It's how many light years?
It depends on your point of measurement. I just told you what it is per second.
Yes, but okay, how many light years?
480.
Yeah, and there's no way you can cover that anywhere near a percentage of the speed of
Well,
light.
I know it's something like 19,000 light years per year, but it's less than 100% speed of light.
Oh no, it has to be, because okay, just look like the measurements in the solar system. It takes 8 minutes.
Look, I know what you're saying, and it's occurring to me in my brain that I'm wrong, because otherwise it would have taken them 480 years to get there if they were 100% speed of light. But I'm just saying, I understand, and I am just trying to back off of the math now. I've given you your right, and that's as far as I'm willing to go.
Okay, fair enough.
I just want to, bring up the board here real quick, because after that, actually, I want to bring up my little timetable just to show people what we're keeping track of. But I have to change things to do that.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, now who do we add here? Going down the Imperial side, we've got Kristoff down here, who was a captain, as they say. Little red border to show that he is captured. Obviously, it'd be a red X if he was dead. Just trying to figure out how I'm going to be doing this in the future. So I'm just still kind of winging it. He's got this green line here trailing over because he's been pretty friendly with Yang.
So far.
Well, yeah, I mean, he kind of put himself in harm's way for the benefit of Yang, because Yang is apparently the only one who's solved the conundrum of he asked for something, and Yang said, yeah, I'll do that for you. The conundrum, which is ruined the relationship with all these other people. Which I guess, despite the fact he's the representative of the prison population, and they're pretty, cool with the prisoners, every other guy was like, fuck you, no. I don't know. Anyway, we got these other white lines coming off of Yang. One for Bowie, who is the security chief. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who have also got white lines coming off of him to Jennings, which is the vice superintendent, as well as Barnaby Costa, who is the superintendent. Because I don't know what their actual relationship is. I assume Jennings is actually a red line, but I'm not 100% confident. Put that down. Anyways, Barnaby here has got a red line to Yang, because obvious. Oh, I've also given him a red line to Fyodor, because Fyodor also got thrown into that.
Oh, he volunteered.
Yeah, but he's there.
Yeah. Fyodor.
I mean, not for nothing. I know I keep calling him Pydor or something like that, but
Yeah. Your turn.
I'm gonna have a lot better chances first name than his last name. Petrovich. Nope. See, I've already fucked it up.
Fyodor Petrovich.
All right.
CH would be K. Well, never mind.
Let me see if I can get this on the overlay. The running timeline, which I had just sent lessons earlier, just to see if he could piece anything together that might make any sense. Also, the Kristoff stuff, I've kind of tried to figure it out, because they said stuff like a year after that he did this, and then 3 years after that he did that. Some of them, they say that for a bunch of people, and then I was like, okay, well, it's this year that this happens, so I'll just add 1 year for the thing he says they do 1 year later. And then I'll add all that up, and something will happen to somebody. And then they'll say, and then 760, he did this. And it's like, well, he died a year ago, according to all of this other stuff. It's like, ah, shit. All right, well, maybe one of these years he did it in the same year, even though they said a year later.
Oh, I find very interesting now that we have two calendars. UC is the Alliance calendar, and RC is the Imperial calendar, the highest calendar.
The one where they spell months differently.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting that the numbers in the highest calendar, the Imperial calendar, are smaller than the Alliance calendar. Now,
Well, maybe the Alliance calendar is based on something from the Imperial past.
Exactly. Which leads me to believe that perhaps the right calendar is there was an older calendar you mentioned before, but perhaps there was a new dynasty or a new leader that came out and says, no, this is year one and we're starting from scratch, which could be interesting, probably seeing the main series or not, as the case may be.
Well,
That's something to watch out for.
I mean, my thought would have to be
a new dynasty.
Well, what is year zero when you're making a new calendar, like brand new, like you're a rebellion, like maybe, I don't know, it depends on how, not the word pedantic isn't the word, vengeful, how hateful you are. Because remember, the guy who founded this comes out of like a gulag to form an empire, So
and also,
if you're vengeful enough, maybe you're going to base your calendar off like the most damning thing you can to the entire imperial legitimacy.
Yeah, because this is not UC is not 130 or 140 something, right? It's not in the foundation of the Federation, so to speak, or they're like, oh, it's like if the French did it. They tried during the French Revolution to start a new calendar, right? It's like, oh yeah, this is a new government. We're gonna start with a new calendar. We're gonna have years are gonna be 10 months long. Everything's gonna be base 10, that sort of thing. Didn't stick, but they try to do that. You would think that if this is a calendar specifically for the Alliance, then it was year zero, or mostly. Well, actually, you rarely say year zero. You say year one. Year one would be either the year of liberation, or later on a year of foundation, like say United States, the signing the Constitution or something like that, right? Because that's when officially you become the United States, and that would be year one. Day one, month one, year one of how many, right? But clearly that's not the case. We're still using Anno Domini 2024, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's it's not odd. I don't know why I was describing that. It's just a thing in modern society to resist change, especially in the digital age. Because, I mean, can you imagine just changing the year? People don't want to, teach kids new, real, factual stuff anymore because they didn't get taught that in schools. I have to believe that it was easier to, change the educational system before everybody had instant communication. Because now, if you, say the book a repository in Texas that decides what books are taught in majority of public schools across America, they decide something way, way back when, and it gets disseminated to a bunch of schools, and then people have a complaint somewhere across the country, and it takes so long for that complaint to reach that it's already being taught in places, and it just, the lazy nature of humanity. Well, fuck it. It's too hard to change now. Versus now, it's instantly, Twitter's all about, they're teaching what in what schools? The crackback is so fast that it's hard to institute change.
Yeah.
Also, we don't actually know when the war started. The earliest thing I have on here is that Yang Wenli suggests that in UC 789 that the war has been going on for over 130 years. Don't know how much over, but that would place the start of the war, if it was at 130 years exactly anyway, at UC 659 or RC 328. So it's not even zero on anyone's calendar.
Exactly. But still, it both the discrepancy, the fact that the imperial calendar, the empire existed before I keep saying federation, the alliance, and yet the alliance calendar is it's a discrepancy that's like it has to be something to it.
Yeah, it's like what happened 300 years before the start of the imperial calendar.
Could be a series of rebellions, and the one that succeeded was the one that led to the foundation of the alliance, right?
Well, no, the foundation of the alliance was one guy breaking out of Gulag. It is,
Yeah,
if you're familiar with the World of Warcraft story, it's very much, the Thrall story. One guy breaks out of a gulag, finds a bunch of allies, unites peoples together, etc., etc.
Yeah, I played Warcraft 1. No, Warcraft 3.
Yeah, that's the story of, Warcraft 3.
Yeah, that's how you start the
Also, World
game.
of Warcraft, where you go to those places and you time travel. But, no, I'm just saying that guy is within... I don't know, I don't have anything written down here. I thought I had him on the time scale. Because they don't actually say in that episode when any of that happens. Just seems... I don't know, if the war started over 130 years ago, it seems like that guy would be within that time scale. Like, why wouldn't you start the war immediately? So otherwise, you're giving this guy 300 years to set up. That's a bit of a lag. All right, well, I feel like we've gone over everything, so let's go ahead and get on into it.
But before we get started,
make sure that you hit the like button,
hit that subscribe button,
comment down below to feed that algorithm.
On top of all that, if you want to watch more shows like this,
unfiltered,
uncensored,
and uncut,
as well as some early access stuff,
you can check it out over on the Patreon.
It's just $5 a month, but hey, no pressure.
There's zero pressure in order to do that. It's just a little bit of extra support, and it would be greatly appreciated.
Funny note, I was editing... Yeah, this must have been a couple days ago. I was still editing Macross Frontier, and I started it, and I was like, oh god, did I record one of the Legends of the Galactic Heroes videos with the Macross overlay? Because the galaxy thing at the beginning of the Macross episode isn't too far from how this looks.
Yeah.
It's just
this looks familiar.
It's literally just a little bit wider with a little bit upscale. And it's like the same thing. I'm like, oh man. Because it's not inconceivable that I've done it before. Recorded the show with the wrong overlay.
I think in Japan, 4K, well, not 4K, but widescreen 1080 high definition became official in 2000 or 2001.
Sometime over after 2000.
Yeah, it was
because we watched. I'm actively in the process of solo reacting to Raw Zaphon, which is 2003, 2001, somewhere between those 3 years. And the first episode is widescreen, and then every episode after that is in this format. So, but if it was like 2001, it's entirely possible that they gambled their first episode on a format that would be to come, and then put the rest of it in the format that they were actively using at the time. Considering the time it takes to make a thing versus when it comes out. So if like in 1999 or 2000 you're making a show for the future, it might come out after a new format's become standardized.
Also, how many people owned? Just because that becomes a standard doesn't mean everybody owns TV. So it takes a while for people. Well, it takes a while for those.
You need to make the argument for people in 2000s owning TVs. We're not talking about like the 1960s.
No, but going from tube to, oh, wow. Things are getting worse.
It's a rebellion. Unless those are just emergency lights.
Yeah.
No, I said the gas grenade.
どういうことだこれは。コステアがいよいよ始めたらしいな。自分にとって都合の悪い連中をまとめてダストシュートに投げ込むつもりらしい。
私をやたらに放り込むと途中で突っかえますぜ。考え直した方がいいでしょうよ。
They're just still making
なん
jokes.
という悪党だ。味方ごと俺たちを消そうとするとは。こうなれば必ず生き残って思い知らせてやるぞ。コステアは追い詰められたのさ。ケイにな。私に？そう、お分かりかな。エルファシルの英雄。あ、私を。
Yeah, but when the dude has yellow eyes, and every time I've ever heard kids describe how an evil guy looks like, it's always yellow eyes. I swear to God, he had yellow eyes.
私もそう思うな。
Also, this general
ケイ
appearance.
の背後に軍部全体の影を見たというわけだ。後ろめたいところのある人間は常に影に怯え、過剰防衛の心理に駆られるものだ。
名講義ですがね、大佐殿。これからどうすればよいかご教示願いますかな。
ああ、すべてはここから生きて出て。
Escape the blast zone would be number one.
非常に美化して言えば、ヤン・ウェンリーは真理遠謀の人であったが、必ずしも臨機応変の人ではなかった。この時ヤンが選んだのは、最も効果的で安直な方法であった。
では、ケーフェンヒラー大佐、早いところ我々をここから連れ出していただけませんか。
いなことを。宣告も言ったが、私にそんなことができるはずがなかろう。
私としては大佐殿が退路を作ることもなしにここに入っていらしたとは思えないのですがね。
そういうのを過大評価というのだよ、お若いの。
大佐こそ健常の度が過ぎるでしょ
Oh, he no longer has the manacles. They disappeared.
大佐殿、あんたはお急ぎ
No,
の時間に
Captain never had
未練
them.
はないかもしれんが、
Oh, yeah.
ヤン少佐は過去より未来がずっと長いお人なんだ。しかも善と優位な人
He just kind of walked in and sat down
大佐殿にとっても
after a conversation with our
はならんと思うよ。
rebellion leader.
ついでに俺も助けてくれたら、あんたの善行も完成されるってもんだが、どうかね。
高周波発生装置ですか。お手製ですね。
Thank you, Yang. Wouldn't have been able to figure out what he was doing without it.
通信用パイプスペースだ。地下を縦横に走っとる。ここに潜り込んで難を避けるとしようか。
So he could have escaped any time.
Well, they already covered there's like no nearby planets or anywhere to go. So he could have just wandered the prison at any time.
邪魔をするなら人暴れして行きますから、お先にどうぞ。
To be fair, his battle excellence seems to be entirely on the fact they don't do anything when he like breaks his cuffs or grabs
手
them.
錠を引きちぎるとは。
I mean, they were shocked. Probably didn't expect
私に
it.
もできるんです。
なんだ。
You know, a lot of people when they're shocked act, you know, violently. You ever been surprised by a spider?
I know people who scream and also people who run away. Also, these people are being bombed as well.
Oh yeah,
These
they're
are, like-
already in a combat scenario. You think they respond with violence.
やむをえん。
Or they surrender their weapons. Whatever, I don't know. Clearly I don't get people. Did they say something about why they couldn't take their guns into the tunnel? Nope, this dude is. Why? Did they say you have to surrender your guns to come with us?
I think they did.
Okay. Things I'll catch in a rewatch.
Ew.
I thought they were going to be roly-polies, but I guess they're like a slug.
Oh, so that's how he knows the guy's embezzling money. He mentioned about putting a little hole. If he knows about these tunnels, he's been all over the place. He could escape any time.
Again, there's nowhere to escape to.
True, but
That's why they said that nobody tries to escape. There's no nearby planets to go to.
that would allow him to spy on everybody if he can move through at night in the tunnels.
He's the leader of the prisoner government. He could have just walked anywhere he wanted to.
Yeah, but something like this would still be useful, though.
No, I'm not saying it's not useful. I'm just saying it's not needed for him. Except for, of course, the cases where he wants to spy on somebody. He's been hit by like large falling rubble already, and now he's just running into. He's gonna be the dude who walks through a wall at some point.
注意、お前さんの下手な演技はほどほどにすることだ。役回りを守って死ぬのもいいが、後で不本意な母姫をかき立てられて陰にも唱えられんというのでは、先祖に対して申し訳が立たんだろ。別に演技と言われるほどのことをしたわけではない。所長は約束した。協力すれば必ず特赦の対象にして半年のうちに帝国本土へ送還してやると。
故郷へ返してやるという約束は捕虜にとって何にも勝る誘惑だろう。たとえ疑問を持ったとしても期待が疑惑を上回るだろうし、まあ仕方がないというところか。で、コステア大佐の目的は何だと言っていたんだ？
それはケーフェンフィラー大佐が密かに行ってきた様々な不正を暴くのだと聞いた。なるほど。
Bitch, I've been in prison since I was 28. I'm 71 now. What do you think I could have done?
進んでコステア大佐の提案に乗ったというわけかね。
帝国軍人の名誉にかけて断言するが、俺はコステアなどのせこい陰謀に加担した覚えはない。加盟を汚すような真似は俺は決してしていない。
つまりあんたは最初からコステアに騙されっぱなしだったというわけだな。
Which is also shameful as well.
所長の方が悪辣だったんだ。やれやれ。敵国の人間を励ますのに。
I appreciate you saying it was also shameful as well the moment he said you shouldn't feel shame.
あなたは実にいろいろな事実をご存知のようですが、だとすればこの事態をどう処理すればよいのか、それもご存知ではないのですか？
No, but it also allowed him to spy on the superintendent and other places as well.
No, I already
Sure, he
agreed
would
with
have.
you on that.
Yeah.
I literally said it does nothing useful for him except for letting him spy on people.
やれやれ。士官学校はどうにか卒業したのに、また老試験官に口頭試問を受けているような気がする。
For half a second, I thought we might be going into flashbacks here in this tunnel. So did we lose everybody else?
And I bet the exit is under Costia's own office.
どうにも妙なことになりましたな。
まったくね。
なんとも食えないご老人ですな。捕虜になっていなかったら今頃帝国軍の中枢にいて我が軍に対する謀略を巡らしていたに違いありません。
Or would have been poisoned.
同感だな。あの老人が帝国軍の元帥なり。
That's a weird way to climb the stairs, but sure. The stairs, no, ladder. I forget in Spanish, it's the same word for both, for ladder and stairs. So.
I would say, yeah, typically it's a weird way to... If you're climbing stairs, there's a problem with the stairs. You ascend stairs.
この収容所全体が敵だと考えるべきなのでしょうか。
それは兵士たちの判断によるな。彼らが上官に盲従するか道理に従うか、その選択によって我々の命運も左右されるだろうよ。 民主主義国家の軍隊にあって兵士たちがどのように身を処するか興味深いところだ。
That thing you're trying to teach us.
上官の言いなりであろうが、自主と自立を旨とする民主国家の兵士なら自分で聖者善悪を判断できるのではないか。そう言いたいのだ。
Good.
Hey, it's that whole thing we talked about before about moral obligation. Just a different show. No, not here in the tunnel.
少佐はどこにいる？ケフェンヒラを探せ。二人を必ず見つけ出すんだ。
コステア大佐。
I told you he was getting
Oh,
right
I
into
would
the
replace that with the, oh god, what's the name of the movie?
Outland?
That. Anger management. That's what I'm thinking of. The team in the background is... Well, I did say he'd be busting through a wall, so... Oh yeah!
称賛していただけるものと思っておりましたがね。このフェオドル・パトリチェフは
Who just wasn't behind us moments ago.
連行して参ったのですぞ。
ポレスブルク。よりによってこいつらが生きているとは。
Oh, thank God we only carried the one gun with us.
私にトリガーを引かせないようお願いします。上官を撃って自らの功を誇るようなことは召喚の欲するところではありません。ほとんどペテンだな。大佐が迅速に動けば私の腕では撃っても当たらないだろうが。大佐は私。
Especially when you're looking this way, and the barrel is like here. You're not looking down the iron sights.
I think he is.
No, he's the right foot like this. He's like, because my shooting.
No, his head's tilted and his eyes are looking directly to the right.
自分のやっていることの意味が分かっとるのか。
そのつもりですが。
Left? Sorry, it's hard to read the orientation on this side.
解釈だと解釈の余地などあるか。唯一無二の事実を教えてやる。カウはいや、お前は上官に銃を突きつけておるのだ。これは反逆行為というのだ。分かったか。
はあ、召喚としては自衛行為と理解しておりますが。
どこが自衛だ。
迫撃砲に比べてライフル。スケールが小さくなって可愛いとは思われませんか。
可愛くなんざないわ。コステア、この薄汚い卑怯者が。プレスブル君、話を聞け。聞くことなど何もない。
This dude is easy to manipulate.
Yeah, he's a junior officer.
Well, no, I mean the prisoner, but I mean, what if you pushed him forward? What if you pushed him forward to attack the superintendent, and then shot him in the back to get yourself a leg up? You know, this is what happened, Superintendent. Now do what I say, or else I'll actually say what happened. You know, if Yang wasn't the hero.
Yeah. If he were Char, he said he'd do that. Although, no, Char wouldn't do it because he wouldn't want any witnesses.
No, Char would just let things play out and then use the information for manipulation purposes later.
He's just, I mean, yeah, I told you that was his characteristic. He's very strong. Or trigger discipline.
But he's already said I'm bad with guns.
Yeah.
My very first thought is literally the guy who's bad with guns is the guy holding all the guns.
Yeah.
ヤンは事態の収拾を図るとともに、この整形を監視するタナトス警備管区の司令部に連絡を取った。
Military police was like, why would the regular police be involved in a situation with the military?
確かエルファシルの英雄だな。
恐縮です。皮肉かな。軍管区に挨拶に寄らなかったからな。
そちらはパトリチェフ大尉だったな。
お久しぶりです、閣下。
で、何やら騒乱が発生したということだが、どういうことか。第一、なぜ所長ではなく着任したばかりの参事官が報告するのか。
Well, it's about that.
申し上げにくいのですが、
ヤン少佐ご自身からは申し上げにくいと思いますので、将官が代わって説明してよろしいでしょうか。実はヤン少佐は統合作戦本部の直接命令を受けてエコニア収容所の監察に見えたのです。というのもコステア所長に公金横領の疑いがあった。
Okay, we're gonna straight up lie about how everything went down.
Well, exaggerate.
I don't think it's exaggeration when you're... Well, no, because he's misrepresenting the orders that Gang had to come here with, which should be literally written down. So, it's a lie. See? The inspection lie.
准将にそれを指摘されたらどうするんだ。准将はそれには気づいていないか。
当初副所長のジェニングス中佐らが夜間巡回中に捕虜たちの人質にされ、将官とヤン少佐が
Yeah, the night patrol that was set up before.
その上でコステア大佐は強硬策に出て事情を知る捕虜たちと共に我々を抹殺しようとしたのです。幸い捕虜の中に協力者がいて我々は脱出に成功し、逆にコステア大佐を拘束したという次第です。
こうなったら大尉のシナリオに乗るか。差し当たり目的を果たして説明は後から加えればいいだろう。
ひとまず事情は了としよう。こちらから私の代理人を派遣するので、今後は彼の指示
I
に
mean, what's the benefit of the lie?
軍管区参事官
Right?
He's more authority for what is it.
No, not the inspection lie. What's the benefit to lie about this?
ヤン少佐、
That you've taken over the prison? No, Yang doesn't even take over the prison in this scenario. At best, he becomes a vice superintendent.
最初中佐は捕虜たちの人質になっておりまして、
それは聞いた。
一旦解放されたのですが、
I'm not being flippant about any of this. I'm just like, from the Commodore's perspective, what's the point of lying to me about any of it?
よろしい、ヤン少佐。事情はともあれ、現在機関が惑星エコニアにおける
No, never mind. I was wrong about the whole hierarchy of
そう
things.
した責任を果たすように。
I guess despite the fact that the
ど
vice
ちらの側にせよ、
superintendent did nothing wrong, he doesn't get promoted.
他方によって害されたものとみなす。必ず当地の秩序と治安を維持するよう。
全力を尽くします。
中佐のご到着はいつになりますか。お待ちしております。
He was like, "Oh, what do you expect me? Yeah, 3 days. I'll be there in 3 days. Sure. We don't kill each other first."
Well, maybe he was doing math. They did say that Thanatos police were responsible for the system, but there's no other inhabited planets in the system, so clearly they've got to dispatch from somewhere else. So you have to do the math on how fast you can get on a ship in the average travel time of 0.00067 light years per second.
怒ってはいないよ。ただ、村井中佐という人がやってきたとき、どう弁解して辻褄を合わせようかと思ってさ。村井中佐という人は冗談が好きな人かな。
Oh yeah, that dude looked like he was down for a joke.
冗談当職が大嫌いなお人だそうで。
秩序と規則が服を着て歩いている。
スクリーン越しに見てもそう思いましたか。
思った。
第一印象が正しい稀有な例ですな。
多数例への変更は効かないものかね。堅苦しい人間は筋を通したがるものだから、事情を理詰めで納得させることができれば、そう不公正な処置は取らないだろう。多分。
I mean, you still lie to him.
正義は我らにありですよ、少佐殿。そうひどい結果にもならんでしょ
I
う。
mean, truth is on their side, even if it's for some reason based on a lie.
Yeah, that's what they're counting on. But still, this is the military, and things don't get overlooked that easily.
過料の手配と死亡者の遺体の収容を指示した。破壊された建物は現状を保存し、周辺の住民には危険のない旨を通達しなければならない。村井中佐の到着までまだまだ気の抜けない時間が続きそうだった。
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really get the point of the lie.
I get the point of the lie from the point of view that it gives him more authority to act against his superior officer. Otherwise, he would have been, even if he did the right thing, it'd still be mutiny, and he would still end up in prison. Because you have to follow a chain of command. You know, he didn't inform somebody higher. He didn't make a report.
Well, there was nobody higher.
I mean, there are channels for we to report these things, right? Oh, whoa, there was the vice superintendent, right? He should have reported to him.
Well, there's no telling where he was. Because remember, he was escaping the situation. Yeah, no, they traded themselves for him. So there's no telling where he was, and he wasn't on the scene.
And also, remember, he got this information from a prisoner.
Well, it was also not refuted. It was corroborated by his own words, the Costa's own words.
But remember, he had to lie about his injuries in the battle because he can then claim that he said that under duress.
He wasn't in the battle.
Exactly. But they lie. Oh, no. They said, what's one part of the lie? Say, oh, he's in the hospital because, you know, he took damage, you know, he took wounds under the battle, as opposed to being beaten up by a prisoner, right?
Well,
and he can
that
then say in
does
defense,
at least go to gang. No, I mean, that does go to gang self-defense. He pulled a gun on him.
But he didn't say that.
No, but Costa pulled a gun on him. Well, that's what I'm saying. The lie doesn't make sense to me because the facts fall in Yang's favor.
Okay, it's not about the facts. It's about rank and
See, the argument you're saying, I mean, I understand what you're saying. That doesn't make sense to me either.
I mean, okay, it's like both of them
Well,
committed
hold on
wrong.
a second before you get into it.
惑星エコニアの捕虜収容所で起きた一連の事件は村井中佐の到着によってあっけなく収束を見た。エコニアの大掃除、それを演出し実現させた真の英雄は誰だったのか。次回銀河英雄伝説外伝スパイラルラビリンス第11話エコニアの英雄。人は歴史を作り出し、人は歴史を語り。
I'm guessing it's not gonna be Yang. I don't know, because when it was the Alpha Seal, they just said the hero of Alpha Seal. But the way they were saying, who was the hero? It's like, we were here the whole time. So it's like, Are you trying to fool us? Like, point the thing at somebody else? Because I guess it could have been Feodor. He kind of is the instigating factor of everything, and then took control of everything to lie. So... No, my point was that if you're going to do a full-on investigation, which you know that they're going to do, you might as well just come out and say everything that happened. Because you are on the right side. There's going to be evidence that he's embezzling money. And has set all this up, especially because we got witnesses on the prisoner's side that will say everything. And he's no longer capable of being in a position to, like, cover anything up because we put him in the hospital.
I mean, eventually, when he comes out of the hospital, he's going to get questioned, right? And he could take his own.
He's not coming out of that hospital until the guy comes 3 days later.
Yeah, but once he does, he's going to get questioned.
Yeah, along with everybody else.
And he's being a superior officer. His word carries more weight than Yang's.
Yeah, but how many people have to? How many people have to like say what's going on to equal one superior officer?
A lot of people. See, that's the thing. I think that's the thing people, us civilians, don't understand about the military. And in many shows, the military is military light, including this show, how people treat each other, you know, at least in the alliance. I keep saying federation for some reason. But in chain of command is something that is extremely important in the military. Following your chain of command, staying within chain of command, because that's the whole backbone of military discipline, that people don't go and do their own thing.
I think I brought up chain of command maybe like 17 times on this channel. I mean, specifically, I always think back to Babylon 5 and the episode Chain of Command, where they use the chain of command to get around political orders. So,
yeah.
But I mean, that's a different thing. I understand that. That makes more sense to me than what you're implying here.
What I'm implying is that when he claims to be an inspector, what he's saying is, my authority doesn't come from the superintendent, from which I technically part of chain of command. My authority comes from somebody higher than they are. Therefore, my actions, whatever they
I'm
may
not
have
talking
been,
about the inspector. We're still talking about the superintendent.
Yeah, but without that defense, without that part of the lie, right? Then that means that whatever wenli did was outside of chain. He went rogue, essentially, even if he was the victim of these things.
But
right?
we were already talked about moral obligation in this episode. You can, under a specific circumstance, go against the acting orders.
Moral obligation is more of you cannot follow an unlawful order. And none of the things that happen here.
I think putting yourself in. Yeah. Sorry. Remember, the way I was going to phrase that was going to sound really stupid. As a soldier, you can't put yourself in harm's way. Like, wait, what? No, that was going to sound dumb.
Remember when wenli was like, had that discussion with the superintendent and the chief of security, right? They're like, please order me to do this. Put it in writing, essentially. It's like, you told me this order verbally and job. And you go like, yes, I like an email of that. Right?
Well, they didn't give him the order. They implied it. And he was like, well, can you tell me, though?
And so basically became a situation where the chief said, well, we're strongly suggesting you do this, right? Which is, it gives a sort of wiggle room for us. Like, well, I'm a junior officer. I guess I have to do this.
I mean, there's a short going around on YouTube right now from the show Suits, where it's literally the judge gives a pass. I don't know, what do you call it? The guy objects, and the judge doesn't say sustained or overruled. They just say something, and the guy says, okay, but can you say sustained or overruled? Because you have a habit, according to your court records, of not saying it. And she's like, well, what I've said implicitly states this or that. He's like, yes, but I can't get a, what's it called? Not retrial. I can't get a appeal. I can't get an appeal unless you say the very specific words that you need to say. And she gets real angry, upset, calls a recess, etc. But the idea is he's standing up there to make sure that they say the very specific thing that they have to say for public record to file for an appeal, which is the same kind of thing that Yang is like, okay, I understand that implicitly, I know what you mean, but can you put it on the record that this is what you've asked me to do?
Yeah, which could also be seen as a form of insubordination. Because, and this is another thing, at least in the United military, officers never suggest things. Everything an officer says is an order, even though they might put it as a suggestion. In other words, makes things very complicated. It's like, a lieutenant, I suggest you clean up your barracks. That's an order to clean up your barracks, right? Or I would like this to happen. It's a suggestion. Somebody better do what the officer said, right?
We're also working through the filter of a different language as well.
True.
This very much just reminds me of Lieutenant Reed from Mobile Suit Gundam, where the guys, you're in the fucking court-martial. It's like, what did he say? Like, the dude says something, and then he'll, like, Bright will make an observation back. Reed, Bright, this is a fucking court-martial. It's like, did I miss something? he's doing everything he can in the situation to make it the right. All
Yeah, I
you've
mean,
done is just talk, and it's like court-martial offense. Like, look,
Yeah,
I'm never
because
going to say that I understand military life. I'm not that guy,
or
obviously.
one of the things about, at least again in the Western world, particularly in the United States, at court martials, a soldier can ask for a court martial if there's a question of that happened actually in Band of Brothers, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna give you basically a demerit, right? So sign this order, and it's like, no, I request a court martial, right? That was the lieutenant, I think.
Yeah, no,
Lieutenant
I mean,
Winter.
that's Hacksaw Ridge, too.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, because now it comes up and becomes a formal hearing and becomes a whole thing, right? But at the same time, a court martial is usually the power of court martial is almost entirely on the side of the commander, right? So court martials are very rare because nobody wants to roll the die and have the commander simply screw them over. Yes, there are people who are military lawyers who might be watching this. They'll say, well, no, there's a lot of procedures and things that be followed. But at the end of the day, the commander does have a lot of leeway. So there's that. So again, I love that they're playing with these tropes, right? They're playing with them. It's like, okay. And I do realize it can bite them in the ass because they are lying, like, why did you lie to me? Well, and this guy is so strict by the rules, means everybody gets effed. The lieutenant gets effed, Wenli gets effed, the commandant, everybody loses. Like, oh, thank you for uncovering, this conspiracy. We're gonna send this guy. He's gonna be in his own prison. But you jackasses claim authority you didn't have, went outside of chain of command, and possibly stated and helped mutineers. So you're screwed too, right? They took a gamble basically, and see if it pays off.
Well, like I said, my thing is still, if a thing don't make sense to me, it don't make sense to me. I don't. At the end of the day, you can explain this is how the world works in the military life and whatever. I'm not the military guy. Obviously, look at me. But if it don't make sense to me, it don't make sense to me. I can take what you're saying in to try and figure out what people will do. But my first thought is still going to be,
is it fair? No.
I understand. I understand where it all comes from, but at the same time, my first perspective is going to be what makes sense to me. So,
and also, again, I think in many shows, like you watch things like Star Trek, that's usually what happens. Oh yes, I broke the rules, but hey, I got a good result. Okay, you're forgiven. We're gonna overstep that. That's why it's called military light, where the idea that doing the right thing supersedes whatever little foibles you did in real life. That's in.
I don't base entirely my military stuff off of Star Trek. I just can't think of any hard military stuff that I've read, that I've watched. Rather, I've read some Tom Clancy and whatnot before, so I guess that's the closest thing. But I can't think of anything I've watched that would be hard military. Maybe Space Above and Beyond or Space 1999.
Space Above and Beyond, because Space 99 was a civilian lunar colony.
Oh yeah, that's where the moon gets blown away from the Earth. Yeah. No, there's another show that's very much like Space Above and Beyond that has the name Space and then something. I can't remember what it is.
But anyway, let me give you an example, an extreme example. It was during the Vietnam War, which I forgot the name of the village, but a lieutenant aboard a helicopter sees American soldiers committing atrocities. He reports it and actually puts a stop to it. My Lai, the massacre of My Lai.
Does this end with him getting killed?
No. What happens is, in fact, President Nixon, I say extreme case because Nixon actually pardoned them. But at the same time, he basically made this lieutenant's life miserable until he was forced out of the military, right? So that too can happen.
There is that, I don't know what it's called, but there's a specific name for tossing a grenade into your commanding officer's tent. Yeah.
Fragging.
And that you hear lot of that, those kind of stories from Vietnam. Fragging your superior officer who's coming down on you for shit that you're doing in the field that you and all your buddies do because it's fucking Vietnam. But this guy just brought in, trying to run it by the regs or stop this illegal shit that you're doing. Well, he ain't gonna be a problem for very much longer. I don't know if I'm asking for gang to frag severe officers. Obviously, that's not gonna happen. I'm just saying that you start that story, the shit that I've heard, my expectation is that he's going to be dead by the end of your story.
No, actually, he wasn't dead, but he was forced out of the military and made his life, miserable because of it. The guy who did the right thing ended up paying for it.
Anyway, I think that's about it for this episode, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially because we're not done here yet. So, all right. So, once again, I have been Theta. This has been Lessons. We've been Stoneface Reactions, and we will catch you again next time. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stoneface Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video and what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?